Hello and welcome to the Learning Love Podcast, brought to you by the Learning Love Foundation, helping people transform how they love, live, and lead. I'm your host, Dr. Mark A. Hicks, and I want to thank you for joining us today as we spend some time learning love. Love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. And today, I want to talk about where we get tripped up in many relationships, particularly in the romantic relationship, in marriage, long-term romantic partnerships. When we are building a family, we're building a life together, there is one particular danger zone that I think is just not talked about enough. I haven't really heard it talked about anywhere. Maybe it is, maybe I missed it. But there is this one place that people seem to get tripped up so often that I think we really have to identify it and pay attention. And so if you're a young person, I hope you'll pay attention. If you've never been married or if you're early in married life, pay attention. Maybe you've been married for 50 years. You've made it through a whole bunch of stuff, but you've got kids and grandkids in your life. I hope you'll pay attention and teach them this danger zone, because I think it really is a place that people get tripped up, and very many divorces happen because people just don't see it coming. They don't know what's happening, and it's not something that we openly talk about. And a lot of folks end up getting divorced saying, well, it just didn't work out. I'm not sure what happened. We were good at one time and then things just didn't work out in the long run. We have a lot of these vague ideas. I think there's a reason. It's not the only reason people get divorced. I'm not saying that by any means. There's a lot of different reasons that relationships don't work out. But I'm going to give you one today I want you to watch out for in your own life and in the lives of your friends and your family, your kids, your grandkids. Watch out for this one. If you care about someone and their relationship, there is a danger zone that needs to be recognized. I'm going to give it to you today. What we do in our life is we very often in our relationships have created what I like to call the young adult checklist. We have this young adult checklist that we are supposed to live out. And it's given to us. We didn't create it. It's given to us by our friends, our family, our society. It comes from on high of the great societal way of thinking that there is a certain way that we need to live, and we have things that we need to check off. And they're all very important. And particularly when you are in your early 20s, into your late 20s, these become extraordinarily important. And people put a lot of emphasis on making sure you have the checklist, the young adult checklist, the young adult checklist. And what it looks like is something like this. We have to go to school, whatever that might mean. Okay, we have to graduate high school, we go to trade school, we go to college, we go to graduate school. It's different for different people. But we've got to get our education so we can get a job, because we have to get a job. We get that job, check that off the list. We go to school, check. We get a job, check. We get it in the area that we want to build a career. And then we start building that career. We have to start somewhere. We start in those entry-level positions, most likely, and then we want to fix that. We want to get past that. We want to make more money. We want to get that promotion, and we want to get legitimately into our career, out of that first entry-level stuff and into our career where we know we've got a life ahead of us in this line of work. We do that. We check it off the list. Of course, we want to find that special someone. We all want love, don't we? We want love. We want to find that special someone. And many people want to get married. Now, there are some people that say, well, I don't care about getting married, but I want to just find that special someone. There's a lot of different ways that people approach that. But whether it's marriage or long-term romantic partnership, building a life together, however you might approach that in your way of thinking, we want to find that special someone. We want to find that person to live out life with. And that very often, for many people, means we want to have children. Again, not everyone has the same attitude there, but for a lot of people, it means having children. And there is certainly an expectation in society, and very often from parents who want to be grandparents, and from family members, that we're going to have children. People who choose not to sometimes receive some pushback on that. That's a personal choice, but sometimes there's pushback on that because society, parents, family, people in life say we have to have children. So now we have a checklist. We got to get our education. We got to get a job. We need to get a career. We need to get married or find that special someone. We have kids. Well, we got to have somebody split these kids, right? So we got to get a home. We need to buy a house. out of stability, put down roots, start getting equity, all these important things in life. And so we buy a house, and now we're checking things off. And we get into our, say, 30s, 40, and we've done it. We've got the career. We've got all that education we needed to get that career. We've got a promotion or two. We have that special someone in our life, and maybe we got married. We have kids. We have a house. We have all the stuff. The checklist is complete, usually for a lot of people, mid-30s or so, give or take. And that's where people sometimes think, is this it? Is this really what we're doing? Now we're in the grind of raising kids. So yeah, we love them, of course. We love our children, but raising kids is hard. It's just hard. Okay? Doesn't mean you don't love them. Doesn't mean there's not joy. Doesn't mean that there's not fulfillment in that, but it is just hard to raise kids. And the job, yeah, I hope you enjoy it, but every job's a grind sometimes. It's not going to be perfection. You want to love what you do, and you want to find fulfillment in it, but sometimes it's still going to be a grind. Taking care of a home can be very fulfilling, but at the same time, nobody's dream is to get up in the morning to find out they need to buy another dishwasher or need to call the plumber because something went wrong with the sink. That's not the joys of life. That's not the joys of home ownership. There's just hardships to it. There's difficulties to it. And sometimes we get into this life where we have checked off the list and we get to a place and we think, is this really what life is about? I've got the house, I've got the kids, I've got the marriage, I've got the job, I've got enough money, I've got a nice car, I've got the stuff, but is this it? And sometimes we start to look at that person that we're married to, that we have these children with, that we've bought this home with, and what we have done is make them into a coworker in checking off the list. We've developed almost this corporate partnership rather than building a life of love. Doesn't mean we don't love them, but we haven't really built a life of love. We've treated them and approached the relationship as if it were almost this corporate partnership. We have goals and ambitions, and we look for someone that can help us achieve those. We look for somebody we're compatible with that has these same ambitions and that we can check them off the list together. And there can be great joy in that. But once we have done that, there is this danger zone where we've checked everything, the young adult checklist is complete, and we look at each other and think, what do we do now? Are we just here to grind through every day, to make the money, to pay the mortgage, to somehow get the kids to school, to do all the chores, to get the homework done, to deal with the sniffles and the doctor appointments and all the stuff? Is this really what we signed up for? This is a dangerous place. And I'm not saying it's the only reason people divorce. There's a million reasons people don't work out in a relationship. But I think this is a really dangerous place for a lot of people. And the reason I say grandparents, pay attention here, because when your kids and grandkids start having trouble and start feeling the weight of life, understand that a lot of this has come from friends, from family, from society, and there is a rite of passage that needs to take place here. Okay? We have different rites of passage in our life, and we recognize these important moments. And that's important. It carries a lot of weight. That's why we have such a big deal when we have a wedding ceremony, because you are moving from one phase of life to another, and it's a big deal. And we recognize that as society. We have things like the empty nest period of time. People recognize that. It's not the same type of ceremony that you have for a wedding, but people recognize that. People will kind of come together around you, your friends, say, hey, how you doing? It's kind of tough, right? Your youngest moved out, went to college. People will kind of rethink life at that point. They may feel depressed. They may feel sad that this phase of life of actively raising children has come to an end. They're always your kids, but this active raising of children has come to an end, and now they are adults and they're on their own, and we have a different kind of relationship. There can be a grief process to that. There can also be joy to that, and there's a rite of passage in that marriage or in that romantic partnership of, now what? Now what do we do? The kids are gone. How do we live life together? What kind of things do we want to do now? And it's almost a rite of passage. Retirement is another one. People usually throw a party. There's a big deal. Hey, you're retired. There's a new phase of life coming. We recognize these new phases of life in many areas. This is one I don't think that we pay attention to, but it also needs to be an equally important rite of passage. Once you have checked off this young adult checklist, if you're going to, some people have different paths. You do it as much as you are going to. Okay. Some people don't get married. Some people don't have children. Okay. But when you get to a place in your life that you have checked this off as much as you're going to in your life, and especially for those who have the full list, got your education, you got the job, you got the house, you got the marriage, you got the kids, you've done the things. This needs to be a rite of passage where you start to think, how do we really build a life of love? That we're not just partners in a quest. We're not just checking off a list. We are going to build a life of love together. What does that look like? What is love? That's what I talk about in my book. What is love and how do we build it? What are the core components? That's why I wrote that book, because I understand that people come to a place they need to answer that question. And this is a place that very often we get discouraged and we think, you are a good partner to build this life, but I don't know if I want to live it with you, because we never thought about that. We just got into that mode of checking off the list. There is a long life after the list is checked off. There is raising those kids. There is keeping that home. There is working that job. And all that can be a grind at times and fulfilling at times. And through it all, how do we love each other? How do we live our life together in a life of love, not just a quest that we've already checked everything off and now we're into the grind of it? This can be a rite of passage that can be really fulfilling if we recognize it. We did it. We celebrate it. We did all the stuff that we set out to do. Now we've got the kids. We've got the home. We've got the job. We've got the life. How do we live that life? And that's a conversation that really needs to be had out loud. Don't just assume you know how to do it. A lot of people fall down there because they've worked really hard at what society told them you need to do, but society doesn't always tell you what to do after that. Society doesn't tell you how to get from checking off the list to retirement. It doesn't tell you how to do that. It doesn't tell you how to live that out day to day. And so we have to figure that out. We need to have those conversations. And as I always say, maybe you need to get help. Maybe that's a time to get some therapy and say, we've checked off the young adult checklist. We've done all the stuff. We have the life, but how do we live that life well and love well together? Have that conversation out loud. Encourage your kids and your grandkids to have that conversation when they reach this time of life. And if you haven't reached it yet, be ready for it. Don't just look for somebody that can help you fulfill all the checklist, all the stuff of life. How can you live life of love together once you have the stuff? These are important conversations to have. And those of you that are in that place, you might be feeling this, and I hope this will resonate with you, that you've got the stuff, you checked off the list, celebrate that, find joy in that, and then ask this very important question: how do we move into the next phase of life of living out this life we've built together, loving well in the process? And that's my thoughts this week as we are building the life of love that we all want, need, and deserve. As always, I hope you'll go to my website, markahicks.com. A lot of good stuff there, especially links to buy my book, Learning Love, Building a Life That Matters, and Healthy Relationships That Last. It teaches the practical components of what love is and how to live it out in a practical way in your life. So I hope you'll get a copy. I want to thank all the folks at the Learning Love Foundation for sponsoring the show and bringing this message to you each week. Thank you to my producer, Abby Graves of Abby Graves Production, and thank you to all of you for listening. Until next week, love well, everyone.